Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. This is a regular session of the Board of Directors for Clear Creek Community Services District. We're 1 week removed from our normal third Wednesday. That's because of the summertime. Hope everybody's enjoying the heat. Hope everybody's staying fire safe. Luckily, we haven't had a fire out here, except down Linda Road. But hopefully, no more fires. So right now, we're going to call to order, and we have a full board here. Mr. Scott McVeigh, Patricia Delzell, Vice Chairman Chuck Jones, and Johanna Trineri and myself are with us. And with that, we now will stop for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I ask Mr. McVeigh, if you should lead us in the pledge.
Please remove your hats. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you all very much. Right now, we move on to item number 3, and this is open time. If anybody wishes to speak, we'd ask you please to come up to the podium. And anything you want to say about any issue at all? If it's not on the agenda, we can't do anything about it. But if it's something that's important, we can put it on a future agenda. So if anybody wishes to speak at open time, this is the time to do that. Yes, Sandy.
Sandy Winters. I reported last meeting that I was trying to form a Firewise community out here. And unfortunately, all our good plans were waylaid by the Peter Pan fire. But we did have a meeting. We had 13 people, no air conditioning. We struggled through no speaker. She saw the smoke when they got to Bella Vista and called me at 5:14 and canceled. So we're going to have another try at it on August the 10th, 6 o'clock. At the community center.
What date again, Sandy?
August 10th,
August 10th.
6 o'clock at the community center. We will have a speaker. Her name is Sarah Sumner. She's from the county Fire Safe Council. And she's going to bring videos and a lot of handouts and information on forming these Firewise committees. And it's pretty involved. You have to get accreditation and go through several meetings in order to get all this committee formed. But I think that's what Happy Valley is going to really need right now. We had a fire on Pleasant Lane yesterday. And another one down at Peter Pan Gulch. That's 2 down there. And there's a lot of work needs to be done out here to make this community a lot more fire safe. And I have some of these with me tonight. You've heard me talk about them before. They're all on fire safety, preparedness, all kinds of really good information. You just have to ignore the Shasta Lake part of it. If anybody wants one, I've got them with me. But please mark that on your calendar, August 10th, 6 o'clock, the community center.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Appreciate that. I think that's an important thing. Anybody else wishes to speak in open time? Yes, ma'am.
Sarah Bennett. Last week I came up and spoke, and Scott, you had said, and actually Chuck, you had also said if I had any concerns regarding the contract, you wanted them written down so that you guys could see them. So I do have a copy for each of you.
Could you give those to Dale, please?
And then I have a copy for the minutes that I do want entered.
There you go. You have 5 copies now.
And then this copy for Christie to put into the minutes. But I do want a copy of the minutes of these typed out concerns put into the minutes so that they're formally entered into the minutes so that they can show that it's been recorded, that somebody has presented some issues as requested. I believe that there will be some more that are brought up. These are just my own. One of the other concerns that's not listed on here is that a contract that has management and employees on the same contract is not a good thing. It should never have been signed last time. Management should have their own contract, and employees should have their own contract. They don't meet. But other than that, I do have several items listed, you guys will each have your own copy. And if you need to get a hold of me for any further clarification as to why I wrote them down, I wrote down the article number and the point of, where I thought needed to be looked at.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Beverly Fitness, good evening, guys. The HBCC is also going to review the MOU tomorrow night at our meeting, and so we'll have some more points that, concerns that we may be able to bring up also, and we'll give you guys a, written, document for that also. I would like to have the consent agenda pulled. I had some questions on the check register, so.
Yes, I'm gonna
Okay.
open that up, yeah.
Okay, well, I just wanted it pulled so it wouldn't just go flat out. On the Friends of Happy Valley page, a lot of people have been, complaining about the water quality and the taste and the smell of our water. And that's been ongoing because of the well water. But, you know, all the documents show that this is emergency water, and is only supposed to be emergency water, not necessarily 12 months out of the year water. So I don't know if that's a good argument to have against the Bureau, that, you know, an emergency is not permanent water usage. So I don't know if that's a good argument, but I don't know what we can do about the taste and the smell of the water. We put a filter on ours, it's that bad, as far as we're concerned, so of the taste and smell. I don't know what the numbers say. I don't know how you handle the smell and the taste. I don't know if it goes through the same process, but it's completely different. Does not taste or smell the same. So it's just not, you know, it's just not me, it's everybody out in the community knows the difference. So I don't know what we can do about that.
Well, we've had this conversation before many times. Bill, maybe you might want to talk about the well water.
Yeah, I've seen some things on Facebook, and it's a little disappointing that I haven't heard a single phone call come into the office. I've not been invited to any incident to check it out. Furthermore, I have some water here. I do taste some minerals because it probably is from the well water, but, I see some things on Facebook about the swamp cooler, but as far as anything substantial, we're not, I mean, other than some things on Facebook, I don't see it. And everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'm not saying it's not there. I do know that with the groundwater, if you let it sit like that and warm up, taste and odor will precipitate out of the water. That's just normal. Molecules tend to get more excited in the warmer water, but that's just science. So, if someone will invite me out, I would love to check it out for myself.
You can come to my house.
Great.
My understanding, if I may, my understanding was that one of the wells is better tasting than the other well. Is that about how you put it?
Yeah, last year, well 2 was the better of the 3, and then well 3 became, this year, well 3 was better.
No. So it changes.
We just did some mineral sampling, some routine mineral sampling. We'll get some results back, and we'll make a determination of which one's better.
Yeah. But you do treat that water with the chlorine, right?
Correct.
Yes.
It's not considered treatment, but it's more of a disinfectant.
So it doesn't go through a treatment process
Right.
like a treatment plant.
Sure.
Right. So it comes out of the ground, chlorine added, and then put in the pipes.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else in the open time? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to address what we just talked about, the quality of the water. I don't know if it makes any difference, but we're in northern Happy Valley, and I haven't noticed any problem with the water. So I don't know if that's a consideration or not.
Thank you, Joanne. And not to talk about water for an hour, but we are blending the sources, and the wells have been off for some other issues. And so we are bringing more water over from the treatment plant, but it takes time to flush it out. It's not instant. And the taste, odor, it'll attach itself to things that are going on the pipe and the fittings and your plumbing in your homes, and it'll last for a while. So it's not an instant thing. It could take months to completely flush out. Or we could flush the system, which, that's opening up hydrants and scouring lines and dumping water on the ground. Well, it's wasting water, but it's there's a purpose behind it. That's why you see other municipalities flush, it's for water quality. And we, if we have to, that's what we'll do, but I don't think we're there yet. So, thank you for the kind words.
You're welcome, I just want to let you know that we're having no problem. Talking about fire, which is kind of off the subject right now, but, the Happy Valley Facebook page just today posted an app that you can download called Watch Duty, and it's for fires, and it pinpoints exactly where the fire is all over California, and if you press on it, it gives you updates, and there's this, tonight at the news at 5 o'clock, they talked about the Siskiyou fire in Siskiyou. I looked on that app, and it was on there already, and it just started. So for people that are concerned about fire, it might be a good app to download on your cell phone.
This is a CAL FIRE app?
No, it's called Watch Duty, it's free. I don't know who's handling it, I have no idea, all I know is it works.
Okay,
It works really well, so.
okay, thank you. Anyone else?
If I may, I'd like to talk about the water a little bit, the water quality of people's individual property. Some of this also could be due to, if you still have the old iron pipe, the quality of your own lines might affect what gets delivered at the house. And I know that that is a miserable project, but there's new plastic PVC pipe, which may or may not deliver a better product to you. Thank you.
If there's no one else, then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. And it says the following items are expected to be routine. Any interested party, that includes you folks, may request an item be removed from the consent agenda for later discussion. So, is there any one from the audience that would like to discuss something on the consent agenda? Yes, yes.
You want me to do it now?
Yeah, why not?
So I had, when I went over the check register, so I'm just talking to Beverly again. So I'm just talking about the check register or the ledger or whatever that is called. So, Bill answered my question, sort of. So what are all the deposit refunds for? So if you'll notice on there, there's lots and lots of customers with deposit refunds. So I was curious as to, what that was for. Why we were maybe crediting their account instead of writing a check.
Two reasons deposit refund. One, you move. Two, after, what is it, Bill? 2 or 3 years, you can request your deposit refund. If you're a homeowner, renters,
They're only $3 or $4 or $9.63.
it might be a final bill, and that was the additional that was left over.
Well, there's lots of them on there, that's what
That
just,
is correct. And I believe the staff was working through a number of them, that they kind of piled up and they were getting caught
is
up.
that what those are, Bill?
I think so you were questioning I provided you with an explanation today, and just so I was consistent, I just wanted to read what I wrote to you. But
You wrote, I'm at the WTP and I have asked Christie, I will get back to you on this. Oh, no, that was another one. They were not being applied and had to be corrected.
Take it.
go for it.
So your last item on the agenda is all about the same functions. Part of the process, we've been working with the auditors in order to have an actual starting position on our financials for our receivables. That also means we're looking at any customer account that maybe hadn't had their deposit applied as the account, as they moved out of Happy Valley and became an inactive account here. So some of the things you'll see.
Oh, okay, so okay.
And you're gonna see a lot more of those. I'll just prepare you because there, I think tonight on the agenda, it was 400 and something accounts that are just book 200s, which we're happy to clarify for you what that means for us. But we went through every account that was not active. So that means most of the book 200s, they date back to 2002. So as we had, what we did, so if they set on cubic with a balance on them and they were not an active customer, in order to do our due diligence to start fresh in a new financial software and to provide the auditor with what our true position is for receivables and the liability of any deposits we have on account for a customer, we had to, we spent a lot of time in July doing this. A lot of
Thank you,
time.
thank you. I just saw them all and it just was.
You're gonna
awesome.
see more.
Okay. And then the other one was that I noticed, for the directors, and I'm not being critical of your guys' payment, please, that's not my point. But I've kind of looked at every line item, and it looked like Johanna for 615 is listed she's got 2 payments on 615 for her director's fee. So it said 615 and 615, 2 of them for $150.
And you are correct, and I appreciate you catching that. So it looks like I had entered one, got interrupted, like with your phone call or a customer, came back, started again, and re-entered hers again. It went through the normal process of approval, so you can see in the register what were signed. So when I talked to, Bill brought it to my attention when you asked that question. Their sign-in sheet tonight, so when I first came here, we created a sign-in sheet by director, so they can literally sign that they were there and that here, for example, and then a check, that would be the mechanism to create a check. So tonight, if you'll look at Johanna's, that sheet of the bill register is attached to it as backup, showing that Johanna will not get a check tonight to balance that out. So thank you for catching that, and letting us know.
Thank you.
Anyone else care to comment or bring
I
up
have a
any?
couple of questions if the public is finished.
Yeah, let's see if the public is finished. Any other? Okay, let's bring it back to the board, because the board has some questions as well.
All right, thank you, Director Fetzer. Bill, just some easy questions. I did not see in the check register anything for the well alarm AT&T bill, that 76 and change that we had worked out.
Maybe it caught it in a cycle.
Okay, quite possibly. I did see one for 400 and something.
That's not that one, I can answer that if you like. So,
I appreciate it.
so that account, once you got that base rate down to that 74, because if you remember, it was like $700 and something, just a base rate. So we literally pulled that account today. I not know you're asking this question because the statement came in again with another credit on the account. And so, you know, I'm my worst critic. So as soon as it was brought to my attention that I made the error in Johanna's, I was of course triple checking everything today as opposed to double. So what happened was about 4 months ago, after you talked to them and got that reduced, the next month I believe it was, or just prior to that it was like $1,000, and the next month it was like $1,200.
Yep.
Well, for whatever reason, they must be applying something behind the scenes, and they keep giving us credits on this. So you're not seeing a payment on that
That's
account.
excellent. Yeah, I was hoping, because they had indicated that there was a quite possibility that we credit us back for the overpayments. So the board understands that's a phone down at the Wills, and it sends an alarm out. And it charges per time of day and whatnot for every alarm. And it got up $1,100-$1,200 in a month, which was kind of ridiculous.
Every month.
Every month, yes. And Bill and I discussed the possibility of bringing it in-house. And probably, yes, there'd be a small capital outlay initially, but then we would be saving hundreds of dollars every month, potentially $9,000-$10,000 a year by doing a simple thing. So can you tell us if there's any work on that at all yet? I know you've been busy,
Thank you.
and I understand that,
Okay.
and I'm not putting your feet to the fire.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, there hasn't been a ton of progress on
That's
that.
fine, okay. But it's something that you or the next GM will hopefully have time to work on. Though we're still, like you said, getting the credits.
I think the credit this month was like $211 and change or something.
Excellent, thank you. Then, I had a couple other questions, real simple. June 10, first page, Viva Select California, I was curious what that was, it's $3,470.
That's the water treatment plant and the office, HMI, SCADA software.
Oh, okay,
Subscription.
very good.
It used to be called Wonderware and InTouch, and now it's called that.
I noticed that, legal had, two different checks written out, one was for $14,400, and I was curious about that larger one. Horton McNulty, LLP. it
That's
says
the
legal.
auditor.
That's our-
Oh, that's our auditor. Is that the actual cost of the audit then, 14.4?
That's the cost of one invoice of the audit. It was
Yeah,
much
that
more
was the
in-depth than they
Oh, I
expected.
understand, I was just curious as to what it was, and if we can get a general idea of approximately how much the audit might cost.
With more than that.
Well, that's gonna be more because that was obvious. I didn't know if there was a quote yet, or a contracting, a contracting price.
Yeah, we went above that.
That's fine, I understand the in-depth and I know the issues, I'm just trying to get information because this affects our current fiscal year. Actually, that doesn't, it was on last year, but.
I might have that one. You
Okay.
can keep going.
And then the only other real question, was Ferguson Enterprises. I noticed that there were quite a few invoices from them. Totaling well over 8,000.
That's their Gerlinger. That's like their Gerlinger, that's their supply warehouse people.
Okay, it's all O&M, operations, maintenance.
There'll be four more on the bill run that I'm
Okay.
gonna have them sign in the morning.
I
It's
figured it
common
was something simple, but I just wanted clarification of what it was.
standard operations.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, anyone else, anyone else? I've got a few here that, just corrections on the minutes.
Minutes.
Yeah. The very first one that I have is on, the minutes of June 24th, 2021. And, I vividly remember that conversation. And if you look on those minutes, under the drought ordinance, which is on the first page, in the second paragraph of the drought ordinance, it says, Director White reported that zero water is available from the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation at this time. That's correct. He said, then it goes on to say, the original allotment in February was 425 acre feet, but now the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation has revised the allocation to zero water. That is not correct. That is not correct. And what was said is what I've got written right here, and I'll pass it on to all the members of the board. And I'm requesting that it be corrected, and I'll read it for the audience, and I've got some extra copies here, if anybody wants one. And here's another one here. Here, oh, okay, yeah, okay, thanks.
All right, here's a
I'll read
copy
it.
of that for you.
And so this is what was discussed. Director White reported that zero water is available from the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation at this time. That was correct. The original allocation in February was 1,898 acre feet. But now the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation has revised the allocation to 425 acre feet. That was in June of 21. At this time, we have used the allocated 425 acre feet and now have zero Bureau water to use. That's what needs to be in there. That's the correction. And I'm asking the board to put that in as a correction on those minutes. The other corrections are the minutes of 7/6/2021. And it's indicated in the minutes that Johanna Berneri was present at that meeting. She was not. And that needs to be scratched out. And also the minutes of 7/28/2021. In the heading of the minutes, it indicates that Director Bassam was not in attendance. Of course she wasn't in attendance. She had resigned by then. So that needs to be scratched out too. And, unless there's anybody else that has any, oh, one other thing that, I would like to also pull the minutes of 7/11/2022, because I was not at that meeting, I was at the Board of Supervisors meeting, and so I can't vote on that, I have to abstain from that. So,
Was that last day?
that was the 7/11/2022.
That's the one you chaired.
Yeah, the one that you had.
Yes, because Erwin was getting to
Yeah.
your rules.
7/11.
22.
7/22, 7/11/22.
So on the signed sheet, Erwin needs to be deleted.
I need to be deleted, yeah.
Does he need to be deleted or just need to be shown as absent?
Indicated absent was not present.
Is probably sufficient.
Let me turn my phone off here, I didn't realize that I had it on. So, I would like to bring up the minutes of 7/11/2022 and ask for a motion and a second to approve it, and then I will abstain.
I will move that we approve the minutes of 7/11/22.
I'll second.
And we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm abstaining. And then we'll bring with the correction, we'll bring all the other items back to the consent calendar. And, do you wish to pull the minutes of 7/6, since you weren't there? Okay. And we'll pull the minutes of 7/6/2021. Johanna wasn't there, she's indicated as being there. So, we need to separately approve those minutes. So I'm looking for a motion to do that.
I'll move that we, go ahead.
I'll make the motion.
Motion, and Scott, you want to second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And abstain. Okay. So then we'll bring all the rest of the consent calendar back, and all the questions have been answered, and, I'll ask for a motion to,
Before we do that, just a comment. All these minutes were done by volunteers from the community to try to help us get caught up, and I just want to recognize them and thank them for their efforts.
yes, thank you. Very good.
And just to clarify, we are utilizing, the YouTube that Caitlin does. So we took that off that video. So when we're listening, we're sitting there and listening to what that video is telling us. So what Dennis did on that, whatever one that you had an exception to, it's what he hears. So if there are things missing, they weren't on there, or they weren't stating those specific things. We also are trying to, what's the right word? I lost the word. Reduce things or condense things so that it's not as lengthy as it should be. So there are gonna be things that maybe we've taken out that you want back in, and we understand that. So, but we're trying to do the best that we can, and so, with Bill and Christie, they can give us, direction if things that you wanted more expanded upon. But we're trying to get you guys caught up.
Thank you very much.
Staff, we
Thank
appreciate
you very
your
much.
Excuse me, everyone, I said, what was
Can
that?
you come up to the podium? Thank you.
What was the date,
Before we go to the vote on the consent calendar,
what was the date of the one that Senator wasn't there? What was the date of the minutes?
Virginia Barson.
Senator Virginia wasn't present.
oh, that was,
7/6?
7/28/21.
June 28th.
I can't.
June or July?
No, July 28, 2021.
So that was a special meeting.
Yeah. She was listed as being absent, and of course she was absent, she had resigned.
But we didn't know that.
Yeah, I know that, but that's why I'm making that correction right now.
That's why
Yeah.
it's listed as absent.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. We'll get through all this. Well, thank you. None of this is perfect, we're trying hard. Thank you very much for doing what you're doing. So now, consent calendar. Anybody like to?
I'll move that we approve the consent.
Wait, I have a question.
Yes, I will.
Now, let me say something here now. We have to move along. You should have asked the question a little earlier. I have to say that, but come on.
Well, it has to do with the minutes.
Yes.
So,
they didn't approve the grant because there were certain things that needed to be done and that we were going to file with them, to say, okay, we're now recording the minutes in an orderly fashion, and was that approved? I mean,
That was the 7-Eleven one, so they approved that one.
was that approved when we sent it back and said, okay, here are the things that we're going to do now?
You're talking the Cal OES?
Yes.
No, that's on the agenda, that'll come up a bit later, and we'll discuss it then.
Yeah, okay. Now, Don, we're gonna vote on the consent calendar.
Once again, we'll try this. I move that we approve the consent calendar as stated.
Okay, with the corrections.
With the corrections, correct.
Looking for a second?
Second.
We have a second?
Yes.
Patricia, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we can move on to the regular agenda, and we'll move on to 5A, final budget adoption, public hearing, discussion, and action. Start with Bill.
He just stepped out. Did all the board members get the corrected one? The wrong one was put into the packet.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
And Bill did provide me with a more accurate one, but I still have some issues with, and we'll get to those when we get down to that. Did he make those adjustments? Let me see.
Do you have a corrected copy for us?
We're gonna have to check with Bill on that. Looks like he did make some of the corrections that I discussed with him earlier. Let me take a quick look at some of his numbers. So yeah, it looks like he's been doing, but I still have, a few questions on a few things, so we'll bring those up.
I don't think I have a corrected copy. I just
Okay,
have a
Bill may be
copy.
making copies of those right now, let's give him a minute. One of the things I asked him to do was to take a look at the budget and put in a percentage. I figured the original budget had us collecting 100% of the base rate, 100% of water sales, and I didn't feel that was correct. So we scaled that back to 85% on each. But then I was doing the math, looking at what was provided in the package, found out that the WIN Act, filtered repayment loans, the backwash pond statements, none of those had been adjusted to the 85%, and that was an additional 59,700 plus that needed to be adjusted off of our income. So Bill was working a little bit before this meeting started, and I've got questions on a few other items on there when we get to it. I'm looking for as much accuracy as we can on the budget.
So you say what you've done is, and I see here, the copy that I have, does take the 85% into consideration.
On the base rate and
With the-
on the.
Yeah, with regard to the
The
income.
corrected one will include the other items that are on the normal bill.
Right,
The 1081,
yeah.
those had to be adjusted down too. If you're not gonna collect the base rate from them, you're also not gonna collect
That's
those.
exactly right.
And we need to know where we stand financially.
And the copy that I had didn't correct for that.
Correct. Other issues that I had was on the backwash pond. On the 21-22 budget, it was proposed that it be 20,000. It's actually, the amount collected is actually 12,358. So I was kind of asking that be done, and then when you adjust it, 85% of that takes it to about 10,005. And with those items, it reduced our income by $59,710.
59,000?
$710. Now, some of that has already been adjusted on the new copy that I guess somebody is making, Kristen is making copies of for us.
That was something I had worked on before the meeting,
I know,
and so it's really not ready to be published, because we're not done with it.
correct. I had other issues on things like the domestic base rate, 85% collection. It's listed as $1,547,000 and change. When I did the math, it's actually $1,549,000 and change. So it's about $1,381 difference. And so we have copies.
Okay, but we're not ready for public. So
Right.
if you want to give us, what would help me, for instance, is if, let's say, for instance, on the backwash pond, are you saying that $20,000 goes to 12,000?
Correct. If you do the math, it's
Well,
38 cents
38
times
cents.
2,710 customers times 12. and then multiply it by 0.85, it's 12,358.
Okay,
And
and the next
that's
item?
the actual, then you do 85% of that.
The next item that you mentioned?
The base rate,
Correct.
okay, on the budget, it's listed as 1,547,952.
Okay,
When you actually do the math out and carry it out, it's 1,549,334,
one,
based on 85%.
540,
$1,549,334.
344,
334.
330.
A difference of, an increase of $1,381.50.
Okay, so those are two big numbers, anything else?
Oh, just that, now, this is not to fault our interim manager, but there are a number of things that in the original one didn't get carried across. And with differences and whatnot, and I was looking through there and it didn't kind of make sense. Some of it looked like it was pretty straightforward, but then you moved on to page 2, and, the proposed, the adopted, whatnot, the numbers didn't match
Okay,
up
which,
on the original one we had in the packet.
a category, please?
Oh, it's both under
The
revenue
entire,
and
the entire
expenses.
document.
The entire document, yes, it jumps around.
Yeah,
And
all right.
it's,
It's not a simple fix. then.
no, and Bill's been extremely busy, and I don't
That's fine.
fault him for that, but I'd like to see us review some of these things, and make some corrections so that we get as accurate as possible. And, not to put any pressure on you, but can I ask if there's a time frame where we might be able to get the activity reports, so we have a better.
let's, keep going with the budget.
Okay,
changes, just
not a
so-
problem. It's part of my thinking on the budget.
Yeah.
But that's the main issues I had with when I was reviewing it. And then on the very last page, my questions on the distribution system improvements, the valve replacement project on Scout Road, you have it listed as 100,000, and I thought I heard from you was gonna be more in the range of 120 to 130.
I
It
think
had
we
gone
got,
from
I think we got an estimate at 80, for inflation, we went to 100, and then I might have said 120
Okay.
for a project that size, that's.
Right, I understand, I was just looking for, some. And then the valve replacement to Happy Valley Road and Palm, you have an estimate of 17,000. I'm just wondering if that's fairly accurate.
Yeah,
Okay. That's fine. Those were questions that I wasn't sure about, considering what inflation is doing to the cost of the goods and whatnot.
yeah.
If we're gonna be doing a budget, I want as best guess accuracy as I can get. Because we're already under this budget, shortfall of 130,000. And, there may be a few more things here or there, and we don't know what chemicals are gonna do. I'm assuming the 48,000 in the budget for chemicals is probably gonna be an underestimation, considering where chemicals are going. Especially, what's chlorine for the wheels costing now?
Probably close to $2 a pound.
Versus what was it a year
Based
ago?
on our forecast of how much water we think we're gonna sell, that chemical number's close.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I thought it might be a
So
little
if we have
short.
more water to treat, yeah, the number's gonna go right up.
Correct. So is it more expensive through the filtration plant or the well for chemicals? Because you've got turbidity and other things.
For chemicals, yeah, there's more chemicals in the treatment plant. than
Right.
there was.
Okay,
But you pay a lot less for water at the treatment plant than the.
yeah, you do, correct. All right, I think, anybody else?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Anyone else have a question?
Yeah, well, we do, but.
Well, hang on.
I know,
Hang
you're
on.
first.
We're gonna get to that.
All right, I wasn't sure what you were asking.
No, we'll get to that. On the income and operating sales, you have a line item here for agricultural sales, $200,000.
If you look at the date, that was adopted for last year's budget.
And
And this year's is 0. Well, they did have some ag prior to reclamation cutting us back. We ran out of water in June last year, so.
Not this,
No,
not this next year.
No, in the proposed budget for our current fiscal year, it's at 0.
This budget incorporates part of next water year, and so.
It should be 0.
Right, it is 0.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's counted in at the end here.
No, it just shows the difference.
Okay, Bill made a statement, say it again.
This budget incorporates part of the next water year, of the next water year.
Correct.
So we made an assumption about how much water we're gonna have.
And so you're putting in an extra $200,000,
No.
anticipating,
No, we're anticipating 0 ag.
okay,
So that's why it's at 0.
yeah, because it should be, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we should not have $200,000 in there.
no, and we won't, the budget shows
Yeah,
0.
exactly. Okay. Yeah, now the budget that I show here, by the time you add up all of the, income and you add up all the expenses, they're about $130,000 out of whack.
Well, it'll be more than that once we make all the changes.
Yeah.
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 So we need to take a hard look at some of these line items to see what we're gonna do about that. I'm gonna propose to the board, since it isn't necessary we finalize this budget tonight,
Correct.
why not put it on the agenda for next month and, go over this a little more carefully and have a better budget to present to us?
Can I ask, do you think we should run this through finance committee before we bring it to the board?
I would think
That will
so.
give me time to have more input from the public also. at a
I would think
finance
so.
meeting, And then give Bill time to finalize some things.
I would think so.
Okay.
And I think we have to have a budget, a final budget by September? Is that right?
September 30th.
Yeah, so, we got another month. And if it takes that to try to whittle this thing down and get it right, it's probably worth the time. If there's no other questions, I've been open it up to the public. Anybody want to, have their input as to where we are with this budget? Thank you.
Beverly Fickus. What I would ask is, so it was bad enough with the other budget, but now we're looking at a deficit of $184,000
Potentially.
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 So how can we accept the budget when, in the hole? Should that budget not be balancing somewhere?
Seems to me it should be.
Yeah, so where do you
Which is
take
fine.
it from reserves? So
No.
how much are in the reserves and where are the reserves? I thought we were empty, so that's one thing. One of the cost savings though that you can glean a little bit of money is you have the general manager's wage at $120,000. Well, that's if we've had him hired and we don't yet. So you could probably take away $60,000 off of that for now, because
Correct.
if you finally get him hired.
I'm
you know,
anticipating 60 to 80 coming off
Correct.
for that
Correct. So
already.
that, and some of my takeaways were the same things that you guys talked about, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board for consideration. This is an action item, so one of the actions could be to approve this budget as the final budget, or another option would be to send these back to the finance committee and then bring it back at a subsequent meeting of the board, either the August or the September meeting.
I motion to do that.
She moves to do that.
I will second that.
Okay.
Did we get
Any
the
further
motion?
discussion?
Which meeting are you
No
bringing it
further
back to?
discussion?
Finance
Excuse me,
committee.
ma'am, it's over.
It's the next board meeting, the next board meeting.
You said August or September, so I was just trying to clarify which meeting it's going to be back to.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. So now, we go next item on the agenda, 5B. This is a strange one. Cal OES Corrective Action Plan, discussion and action. And I understand that you have some.
I have taken care of that. We had that in a finance committee meeting.
Okay.
Bill gave to me a couple of emails from Cal OES in reference to findings in our FEMA grant because of the car fire. There were 4 negative findings, okay? And we had time constraints on responding to those. I have been in contact with Christy Santos of Cal OES Price. Christy Sartori did an excellent job, and in your packet you'll find a response to those, an initial response Hopefully, all the board members have reviewed that and understand what we're talking about. This is just a preliminary step in the process of correcting the missteps by the district, okay? So,
Question.
yes,
There's a lot of stuff here.
yes, there is.
Yeah, can we do this?
Yes, we have to do this.
We have to do it, but can we do it? Do we have the capability of doing it?
Absolutely,
Okay,
okay?
we're good, we're good.
We are.
I don't understand your question. Do we have the capability of doing what?
Well, my question is, there's a lot of governmental stuff to do here. And do we have the capabilities of doing that, or do we need help to get it
It
done?
is part of the procurement process that this mainly deals with. And our accountant bookkeeper is well versed in that.
I don't know if they're well versed.
Well, you've been a great help, okay? Plain and simple.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we can do it, we can handle this internally and get it
Have
done.
you read the 4 findings? So you need to see what the different items are.
Yeah.
Well, the response in your packet, that she put together is the initial response of what we need to do.
Yeah.
And then we have to follow through and do these things. What I need is her, approval by the board of her response to these things, a copy of the minutes from the finance committee, and a copy of the minutes from this showing board approval. And, as chairman, I would recommend that you sign at the appropriate spot as the authorized agent, date it, give your information, and then we send it off to them, account OES, as an initial step. I will
Okay.
contact them and let them know it's coming, and then we will have those 4 items to address. Part of the problem is the grant file has virtually nothing in it. Okay, so the copy of this document presented, the minutes have to go into the grant file. The minutes of this meeting need to go in the grant file. One of the issues was it Pace Engineering was approved without going through a bid process?
Right.
Okay, we did not address minority women-owned businesses.
Yeah.
We did not take, because of the size of the grant, we did not take into consideration FEMA regulations on air and water quality. So, and the fact that there was not a review process. There was only one, a prior manager, who looked things over and submitted it. It should have gone to a second person, staff or board, for review. And that, we have to identify the processes we're gonna use. And need to include in the grant file all of the regulations that need to be addressed. Because if FEMA came in and wanted to audit that right now, we could get dinged big
Yeah.
time. We could
We have
potentially
to pay it
lose,
back.
we could potentially lose 55,000
No,
and
we
pay
don't
that
want to
back.
do that.
And the balance in that fund that we need could be taken away.
Yeah.
Probably won't happen. Good chance it wouldn't happen.
Well, that's why I'm concerned about whether we are able to do what they're telling us to do.
So our response, if you were to just refresh your memory on what we discussed, what our response was, we've already put several of those into place. We recognize certain deficiencies that probably March, April, as we started putting different practices into place. We'll call them practices because they're not part of a policy yet. Seeing this type of thing coming and being able to circumvent it, not circumvent it, but be prepared to be able to, get ahead of it, thank you. And as far as the language in that agreement, typically, if they had flown an RFP or an RFQ, the contract with the district's language, the district's standard contract, would have been part of that bid packet. And so you're saying, do we have what it takes to be able to, I guess, successfully fly an RFP? We would definitely need a lawyer to look at our standard, in my opinion, to look at our standard contracts, and Bill and I have pulled them up and looked at them. The language that's missing, it gets updated for required contract language. Everybody's aware of that every couple of years. So what was probably a very tight standard contract in the 80s and 90s, year 2000, won't hold water today. And what the funding sources require in those contracts, whether it's Cal OES or Caltrans or whatever, they have specific contract language they require for you to secure their funding. So you kind of have to know your funding source restrictions when you're looking at what the requirements are in the contract. And then I would then say we need to have council review that contract. The contract you guys used here in this scenario, in this finding, was PACE's standard agreement. It was just a very short agreement. It wasn't the district's contract. So the language that's missing is because PACE wouldn't have had that language in their contract. They're not having to worry about funding source restrictions. We are.
Right.
So, and normally when a public agency like this goes into contract through like the bidding process or standard agreement, you're using your own standard contracts to protect the district.
So we basically need to update our standard contracts to be more in compliance and then find out, because we're
Yeah.
applying for other grants, what those requirements are, so that the files are done correctly.
Right.
It doesn't apply to emergency hiring of, Axel or somebody else because we have a leak and
Right.
we haven't had it fixed now. But for anything when entering contracts, we need to have this process
And
reviewed.
that needs to be spelled out in our policies.
So yeah, and to clarify, the reason like Axner, you're going to, perfect example, you're gonna see that on the next payables register. They would be called out under a totally different section of your procurement policy because the threshold, the total dollar amount didn't trigger, not that it was an emergency or non-emergency, it didn't trigger their the procurement piece of that. And even if it did trigger, one of the findings is that it's only emergency once you call a special meeting, you determine as a board it's emergency, it's passed as an emergency, and then that's how you follow your own policy, current guidelines, and contract code to not have to fly that RFP. It's not an emergency just because down the corner said it was.
But it also, let me see if I got that right. We should be putting together a list of approved contractors. And we should maintain that.
Well, we
here on
did
the
have
website.
that at one
Right,
time.
but it should be updated,
Yeah.
okay?
So you do
Yeah, it
have
could be,
that,
because I think we lost one.
but approved vendor list and approved contractors for the purpose of call outs are different things.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the other issues that is in the findings was there was no investigation to see if any of the contractors used were under a disbarment or suspension of being able to work on a FEMA or capital ES grant. And so that process was one of the findings that was overlooked.
The suppliers is included in this as well, is that correct?
I believe
So-
And there has to be,
No.
there has to be a number.
So you're talking
associated.
separate from a project, right? You guys are putting a lot of things together.
Yeah.
So supplies, so.
Supplies would come through the contractor most likely.
Yeah, I would think so.
And you can bring that off of your vendor list, and depending on what threshold the finance committee sets in their overview, their review of the purchasing / procurement policy, if you determine, say, it's, up to $15,000, but typically there's language in there that means you're still going to require us to get 3 quotes off that preferred vendor list, whether it's an email or a phone call, responsive or not, you're requiring us to go through those steps to make sure we're securing the best price for the district every time.
And I had thought when I read through that initially, that there was an association with regards to the price of materials, that we'd have to shop, and that would be within, I don't know, a range or something.
Yeah, it's kind of like a flow chart of what, of money, depending on where you're hitting that max threshold. And right now, the policy here at the district isn't very clear on like the the general manager's purchasing authority up to what threshold. And that is, that's not great for the district, it's not great for the general manager. I mean, he doesn't have, he or she, depending on who going forward, but it's just not clean. It's not clean for the public's resources, you know what I mean?
And if I may, I thought that the number that I had read was $10,000.
I think your current policy says 15, but when we were looking at current contract code, I think for a special district it's 25. Did we talk about that? I think there's a lot of room to do our policy better.
Okay.
Okay.
So they'll be working on a number of different policies to bring us more in compliance.
Yeah. Anyone from the audience wish to speak on this issue?
I would.
Yes, please.
I tried to get rid.
Can you come up here, Sandy?
Take me a minute to get there.
Hey, listen, it's good exercise at our age.
I tried to get Rick to contact Remedy Engineering several times for environmental engineering projects. He never would.
Okay.
Anybody else?
So that's a consultant
Where's your
contract, so
last
that's
chance?
something that you would put an RFQ out for.
Anyone else? Anyone else? We'll bring it back to the board for discussion and decision. Anyone else? Last chance. Okay, bring it back to the board. So what we need to do then is send them the corrective action sign saying we're gonna do that.
Correct, along with a copy of the minutes of the finance committee
Okay?
and this
In
meeting.
this meeting, okay,
All right, that should go, all three of those should go together.
okay.
You, as chairman, should probably sign and fill out your information
Okay.
on that.
So I can come in.
I think I'm the authorized signer.
Are you the authorized signer on that? That's fine.
Oh, is he?
Wherever the
Okay.
authorized signer is.
Okay.
So you can either take care of that, or I can.
Okay. Either way, whatever's legal, that's the main thing.
Well,
And to let them know that we're working on it, and we're gonna get it done right.
In the
Change
response,
policy,
I
make
believe
sure.
you and Christie are in there with your contact information.
We're just, I'm just contact, I believe you're the project manager.
Okay, that would be fine, then you would be the appropriate person.
you have signed the grants, is that correct?
No.
No, that was Skip.
That was Skip.
But wasn't this latest one with Pace? The 477? Didn't
Oh,
it just
yeah,
come through?
that's separate from this.
That has nothing to do with what this is. We're doing strictly with the car fire payment.
This is correct.
Yeah. Okay, so, action from the board, seeking a motion to, approve, signing the, corrective action plan and sending it to Cal OES along with the minutes of the finance committee meeting and the minutes of this particular meeting. Looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right, we have a motion.
I'll second.
And we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. There we go. 5C, time change of regular board meeting, ordinance number 2022-04, discussion and action. So, last time, yeah, there it is, right here. Okay. Last time, we, decided to change the time for the meetings to 6 o'clock, but it was pointed out to us that we didn't dot all the i's and cross the t's properly, I guess. So this is an effort to do that, and we have the ordinance in front of us now that will be signed if it's approved, which it will be, no doubt. And then we'll, move on to the next item. So, is there any discussion by the board first? Any discussion from the audience? Anyone cares to speak now?
I have a clarification on that, if I could.
Yes.
If my memory serves correct, we had discussed not only the general board meeting, but standing committee meetings to be at 6 P.M. Is
Correct.
that correct?
I think, yes, we did.
Okay,
Yeah.
and is that gonna be part of the ordinance then, that both should be starting at 6?
Well, let's see, it's in front of me here.
Yes.
Somewhere.
Standing committees are required to have a regular,
I agree, they're not required, I understand that.
Yeah.
But if they had put it in the original ordinance, do we stick with that, or do we go with?
Here it is.
That's right.
Regular meeting of the board of directors, shall begin at 6 P.M. on the third Monday of every month. Well, this just says that this ordinance just says,
Right.
Then we can leave out the standing committees, and
Right.
I'm totally fine with that.
leave out the standing committee?
Yeah, leave it on,
Yeah.
because you don't have to be at 6.
We're having a discussion.
No, but it's good to have it at 6, if you can. you know.
But it's up to the individual committee.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's up to people's schedule, that's the thing.
That's true, too.
Okay, so we leave this ordinance as it is then, okay. Any comments from the audience? If not, again, we bring it back to the commission, the board, and, Chair would entertain a motion.
Is there an ordinance number or something?
Yes.
Ordinance
2022-04.
Okay, so I would move that we approve 2022 is it 04?
Yeah, 04.
I'll
With the,
second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Okay, over here. Right there. Okay, next thing. Let me get my
G.
paperwork in order. Okay. Next thing is, EAGSA, Equitable Water Charges, Discussion and Action. And I'll start this off by saying that I was at the meeting, I had to be at the meeting of EAGSA, via Zoom because I was quarantined because I had COVID. But I understand you were there, and Beverly was there, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
And I was there.
and you were there, okay. I didn't see who was there, and they had a heck of a time at the Zoom meeting. And finally, that Zoom is so bad, we gotta get over this. But I couldn't go to the meeting because I had to be quarantined. Anyway, we did talk about, on the agenda, we had an item on the agenda, to talk about doing something with the, structure of payments for the ongoing costs of the EAGSA, and, how we can more equitably do that, if I said that correctly.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think, you didn't speak, but.
yeah,
Did you speak?
yes, I did
Okay,
twice.
Yes, okay. And the board, I think, was generally, receptive to it.
Yes, they were.
And, I think what we need to do then, as I understand it, is to put a proposal forward to them.
The board asked that each of the 6 entities go back in and formulate what they thought was the best practice on that, and that they would be submitted to the management committee meeting. I spoke afterwards with, Tim Garman, and to make sure that any proposals submitted by any entities all got to the board for their review, and that the management committee didn't just look at, a few and say, well, I don't like that one.
Yeah.
Wanted to make sure that all of them got there, and
Good point.
he agreed that, yes, they would make sure of that.
Good point.
And what I did, if I may interject, what I did was I simply walked up and I said, what we agreed to was that we agreed to, what we had to in the beginning, where everyone had an equal share with regards to that first step. It's the second part now, where we're gonna negotiate.
A little background for the public, all of the 6 entities are all different sizes. The largest one is the city of Reading with 30,364 meters to our 2,710. Yet we all currently pay an equal share, 16.66%. So I got involved and presented at an EAGSA meeting about 3 months ago that I'd like to see on the agenda a more equitable approach to that. At our size, our share would have been about $1.62 per customer per month, forcing a Prop 218 process on us. And the city of Reading would have been paying approximately 3.2 cents each per customer per month. And they weren't gonna bother with the Prop 218 process, they would just absorb that. And that didn't seem right to me, so I got that developed. And if we can get it to its more equitable level, then you're looking at about 8 cents a customer each, which to me seemed fair. But there are other issues involved in there, ongoing staff time. Now, the original setup and all the paperwork and legal whatnot was covered by 2 grants. So they can't say they put in all this time and want to get paid for it. It's all been paid for.
That's all been
It's
paid
the
for.
ongoing administration, monitoring of the 2 wells, plus 5-year reviews, okay? Right now, the whole EAGSA, or the plan is a MOU, is a 2,200 page document. But they had charts in there under chapter 8 of a low, expected, and high range for costs for the various costs annually, and then for the 5-year review, which would have cost us approximately $52,000 a year if it followed along those lines. They don't know what it's costing. One of the things I did bring up also, and who was it when the lady was there?
Well, if I may, what was made clear is that there are other water districts who would be affected by the cost, who are not represented with regards to negotiations for this percentage. And maybe you can remember who the woman was. I'm not convinced that that was the Anderson Irrigation Cottonwood District.
I don't know who she was
All
either.
the people need to be present when we're discussing that, that 16%.
The management meeting you're talking about?
They meet prior to that,
The management meeting.
Anderson, to the board meeting, and that's where there's been a clarification with regards to having a representative from each district participate with regards to how a percentage, or how we're going to, at least get maybe perhaps some consideration.
But we have to understand, one of the entities is Shasta County, the county government, and they have no meters, yet they're on the hook for paying 16.66%.
And a lady was present for
And,
representative.
there was some issue, with larger ag customers and them not being involved in that. So there was that involvement there. But one of the other things that's potential was to have management committee look into grants to cover some of the ongoing costs. And I brought that up, and there was a woman sitting in the audience who was part of,
Shasta County.
no, she represented, I can't remember what agency, but they give out grants.
That was well, that's separate. That was,
No, this is what I'm talking about right now, is possibly the grants. And there's a grant period
That was
opening up
Department of
in
Fisheries.
August.
Yeah, that's the Department of Water Resources.
Correct, Department of Water Resources, and they have a grant period opening up between, I think, latter part of August all the way through February, where we could potentially be applying for grants to cover some or all of the costs to operate the EAGSA, which will then take our costs down to zero. So
Money is available, so we need to pursue it.
That's correct.
Shasta County has their, is involved with some of these other water districts.
Oh, I'm sure, well, yeah, they oversee Bella Vista and the small Cottonwood one. So
Correct.
they're under their sphere of influence. If we were to back out of the EAGSA, we'd have no vote on anything, and then Shasta County would cover us.
No.
No.
Yes,
no,
I had
there's a
that
question about
conversation
that.
with Charlene Beard and Tim Garner.
Yeah, there's a question about that.
But
But
Shasta
I don't
County,
think it's right to do it.
what Shasta County made clear is what happens is that's a stepping stone to the state.
Yes, it is. I agree.
Well, that was the words at that meeting.
Well, here's the situation now, and we need to rectify it in some way or another, coming up with a plan that we can put forth to the EAGSA. We could stay with the 16%, and we'd come up with that. We'd have to come up with maybe $50,000 a year, you know, to stay in this. But here's the thing, we need the water wells. We need to pump those wells. And in the future, we're gonna need to pump them even more. I'm convinced of that. I hope everybody else is convinced of that. Just look outside, you can see. So we need to stay with this GSP, Groundwater Sustainability Plan. If we drop out of the GSA, we may have to do our own GSP. Couldn't afford that.
Okay.
Just couldn't afford that.
The proposal that was suggested perhaps is, let's say the city of Redden has their own GSA, and then of the other 5 districts, perhaps what we could do is that we could group together with them. We already have a GSA in place, so what we're attempting to pay for them, perhaps, is that we could hook onto what we already have in place.
Well, we hope so. That's the thing.
that's
You know, I mean,
just,
whatever we come up with, we're gonna have to use that GSP.
I don't think we wanna do that.
We have no choice.
No, I mean, the other districts.
We're not gonna go out and buy our own,
No.
it costs $800 and something thousand to put that GSP together.
That's correct. I think what we're dealing with tonight, though, is any direction we want to give management in formulating a response to submit to the next management meeting, and I'd like to kind of focus us back that direction.
Well, in that regard, and I've asked this before, Bill went on vacation, of course, I think we need to, first of all, one of the things we need to do is give our MOU to our legal counsel and find out the ramifications of getting out of it, how we get out of it, can we get out of it, what happens if we get out of it, so we have a better idea of how we can handle this in case we decide to get out of the GSA.
My only concern with going that route is it's a 2,200 page document.
No, not that, the MOU. MOU is about that thick. MOU.
Oh, you're talking the
I'm not talking about the
58 pages?
GSP, I'm talking about the MOU.
Okay.
The MOU that 6 agencies signed to form the EAGSA.
Okay, that's about 58 pages.
Yeah, it's a legal document.
Okay.
We decided to go with an MOU because it's easier to get out of an MOU. We talked about doing a joint powers authority. That's difficult to get out of. Every one of the agencies that are involved in this didn't want to do this, but the state has forced us into doing this, and we have to do something because we are going to be using those wells. And we may even drill some more, who knows, in the future. So we need to find a way to get our costs down, and however we can do it, you know. And so we need to come up with some plans that we can put before them.
And for the board's consideration, if we took the meters from each of the 6 agencies, totaled them, and then took the expected cost, and then divided it by the total number of meters, we would come out, and each agency would then pay that share, which would be an equitable share.
Yeah.
And annually, and Chester County might have to eat some of that. I don't know. That's up for them to decide. But then what you end up doing is, and this is what I recommended to the EAGSA board, was annually, all you have to do is contact each of the agencies. What meters do you have? Because there may be changes, adds, and deletions. And what the expected costs for the next fiscal year are gonna be, because with inflation, we know things are gonna be going up. There may be repairs to wells or monitoring equipment. They would then divide that again and come up with and send out to each of the entities the expected amount of their contribution for that fiscal year.
Play the devil's advocate here.
Go right ahead.
Because it's been brought up to me, and the question comes up, well, if you're gonna pay less, then you don't have an equal vote.
Ooh, I don't think so.
Well, that's what other.
It's proportional.
Other
income.
agencies have said that to me.
I
Well, if you wanna
understand
pay less and we pay more, then you can't have an equal vote in this. Boy, that's tough. Cause you'd like to have an equal vote, right? I would.
Well, considering if you read the whole plan and the potential ramifications of each of the 2 groundwater subbasins, and if it would be, is listed into a critical, excuse me, we could incur greater costs.
Go ahead. Take a sip.
Okay, I think we've covered that. The point is that everybody needs to be at the table when it's being negotiated.
Yeah, and I remember Brenda Haynes saying that when the management committee meets, that everybody from every entity needs to be at.
Right, it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
But
But
this week,
should we put forth some ideas?
do we want to
Put forth some ideas?
direct, I know Bill has verbally brought up some of the concerns to it, but the board wants it in writing what our concerns and our approach to solving the issue. So we would have to decide as a board, do we want to go with my initial suggestion of number of meters equitably dividing it up, or do you want to propose a different approach?
I think we need to negotiate with them. We need to be at the table and see what it is that's proposed, because it's gonna be pretty difficult based on what we've discussed with regards to 16%, or trying to lessen it, and then, you don't have an equal vote. And, some of these other districts don't have meters, and have no water.
Which districts don't have meters?
Anderson Irrigation Conflict District, they don't have meters, do they?
They have customers.
They got customers.
Yes,
Yeah, they have customers.
yes, they do.
They can tell how many customers they have.
Yeah.
I keep hearing you guys say they don't have meters, but, okay.
No, they have customers. I don't know how many customers. I have no idea how many customers. I don't know if it's 2,000 or if it's.
I've got a list of them, I contacted all the communities to get a list. Bella Vista,
Interesting to know.
Do we base it on population?
Well, if you base it on population, it would come out the same about, wouldn't it?
potentially, but that's hard to
We
do.
pay less than they pay.
Customers and meters is easier, trackable.
It is. The only problem is that, Shasta County doesn't have meters to count.
I know, and that would be something, but if we're gonna be at the table to negotiate, we have to come up with a recommendation in writing that we can present and then negotiate with the others, I think. And I think that is what the intent of the EAGSA board was, that each of the entities come up with a concrete plan.
We got some time, because I think the next board meeting is in December, if I'm not mistaken.
Management meeting, do you know?
Yeah, I just looked, there's not one scheduled.
Okay, so we do have a little time.
Yeah. So maybe we ought to,
I don't wanna push you too far down the road, though.
what?
I don't wanna push you too far down the road. We should be
No, you're right,
working on
you're
this.
right.
Oh, yeah.
You're right.
Can we, move this for further discussion at the next regular meeting?
And we can
Thanks.
ask, our interim general manager, ask him if, he would be prepared or willing to put together a draft proposal that we could work on at the next board meeting here.
Yeah. Or if we
Okay.
happen to be lucky enough to have a manager in place.
Let's
That's
try
right,
this.
that's true.
If we write down all the things that we just discussed, so that we've got it in front of us, and we can all present it, that would be a pretty good place to start. That's my
Yeah.
suggestion.
I'm willing to sit down and shout out some ideas that I have, one of which would be, Scott's idea, that's an obvious one, and it's a good one. You know, we're working in our favor. Whether the other members of the EAGSA would go along with that, because it's cost them more, that's another story.
Well, actually, most of the smaller districts, Anderson is about 3,500, Columbus, similar size to us, but they're under
No,
Shasta
they have more, they
County.
have more.
But they're under Shasta County.
Yeah.
So then you've got the city of Reading, they have 30,364 meters.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could we, take a break and maybe open this to the public?
I was gonna say that, if we're finished discussing it here, I'd like to open this to the audience and see if there's any questions or any comments. Dennis, we'd love to hear from you.
I think the better, thing to do would be to base it on the volume pump, the APT pump, because there'll be years with lots of rain, you won't pump in. Right, but you're still stuck with paying, a huge amount of dollars out.
Except the city of Anderson is completely wells, and they would be paying a huge amount all the time.
Yeah, there's always a downside.
Then I'm wondering about some farmers and ranchers that pump big volumes that aren't part of the water district.
That's correct.
They just pump it on their own property.
And they're not monitoring.
Yeah, they're
And
not-
no domestic well is monitored. And there aren't enough of them. The EEGSA had a, discussion about that, 3 months ago, when they approved, they have to, what, twice a year approve, well permits?
Oh.
And the fact that there's so much groundwater that the domestic wells will not impact
It will, yes,
the
domestic
sustainability,
wells
so they
don't
were gonna
impact.
be reviewing and almost automatically approving, well permits, but the county has to submit those to the EAGSA for approval. So, because in case it becomes a critical sub-basin.
So that, those fall under the county's auspices. But we don't impact that water take, that, that aquifer very much at all. We could triple what we take out of it and still not affect it. But we have to have a GSP and a GSA because the Department of Water Resources said we had to.
Because we were.
Because,
State mandated.
and we fought that and lost.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't lose, we actually, when we contested that, because we thought we'd be in a low priority, and we wouldn't have to have any monitoring or anything going on. The Department of Water Resources said, no, we think you have to be, we think you're moderate, so you have to have a GSA and a groundwater sustainability plan. And we argued back and forth, and their action to get this moving, to get us in Shasta County moving, was they said that they would pay for the plan. And so we all said, okay.
Now, they also paid for the first monitoring well.
Yeah.
But I understand the one in Anderson on Jim Dandy Lane, the agency's gonna have to look for funding for it. They have.
I asked about that at the
And that's
meeting,
on,
and they
that's
said-
on ACID property, on Jim Dandy Lane, but that it may not be covered under one of those grants.
I'm gonna check that out. I asked about that, and, whoever it was that answered my question said it was covered, but we'll see.
I hope so.
Yeah. Anyway, any other further discussion from the audience on this issue? It's an ongoing issue, and, we are by no means at the end of it. We still working on it, and probably will be working on it for some time.
Hey, is there any direction we want to give our interim manager or potential another general manager in putting a document together?
Yeah, that would, be a proposal.
Okay,
That
do we
could be
have
taken to-
information or a scope we want to, provide for him, so he has some guidelines for putting it together?
Well, what you had suggested is one of the things, of course,
Okay.
to divvy this up by meters.
Customer base.
Right, customer base is a good term.
A customer base, yeah, that's right, not meters, customer base, because ACID doesn't have any meters, they got customers.
So do we wanna put this in some formal aspect, is
We
it
could do
direction
that,
then?
and we can ask, interim general manager to put that on the plate.
Would we request any information from Shasta County since they have a stake in this directly themselves?
I think that'll come at the management meeting.
Yeah,
And we can't, coordinate any ideas now?
Well, I think
We're
the
gonna put together a
direction from
proposal.
the board was that each entity come up with, a plan.
Well,
And then they then bring it to the management, discuss it, move it on to, the EAGSA board.
I also think we need to, somebody needs to talk to the Department of Water Resources about grant process and what exactly the Department of Resource would allow.
Correct.
What would they think about this? I'm sure they, understand that, the cost is gonna be tremendous for a small district. So how would they propose we work on this? They can have some input into this. I doubt it. Well, you might be right, they may just say, hey, it's your baby, you deal with it.
In a proposal, I'd like to see some, terminology, in reference to asking the management committee to look into Department of Water Resources grants. The grant period, the next one comes up very shortly. And if they could look into applying for grants to help cover it, it could become a moot process.
Yeah, it could be, you know, because there's money available, and I'm sure that we're not the only small district in the state that has this problem.
I made that point when I spoke.
Yeah.
If we could get a grant cover the first 10 years, that saves us $500,000.
Exactly.
We have better use for that money.
So that needs to be pursued, the grant process needs to be pursued.
The Department of Water Resources made perfectly clear that there is money that's available out there.
Yes.
Grants, currently.
Yep.
We wouldn't wanna let that slip by.
No.
I would like to see that in any plan we submit to the management committee.
Okay. There's some ideas?
We'll have to coordinate something.
I'll have to find time to do it.
Okay, well, I can certainly help write out some language on this. And we can bring it back to the board.
Correct.
So since it's an action item, our action should be to
Discussion?
Do we have to take an action? We don't.
Discussion.
We've given direction.
Right.
So
Maybe that's
we
our
don't
action.
really have to do
Yeah.
an action. Okay, so we can move on.
Yep.
To 5E, increase of the current water allocation, discussion and action. Now, who's?
That's something I've been working on for the last few weeks. It came to my attention, if you looked at, water year usage acre feet, and did you have updated numbers on the usage for this month? You would think maybe between 125 and 100 acre feet of water, surface water,
Yes, we're trending at about 160 acre feet.
160.
Yeah.
Good.
I
Um,
mean,
Having looked at the June usage, we were up to about 93 acre feet of the McConnell Foundation water so far. And my concern was since we have a signed contract purchasing 1,120,
Right.
we have to pay for it $280,000.
We
And we
need to
needed
use it.
to be encouraging our customers. So having looked at all of the various charts and done the math and whatnot, I wanted to recommend to the board that we increase immediately, if possible, the allocations for M&I customers from 29 to 40 units per month.
Yay.
And take the, percentage customers from 60 to 75%.
Yay.
I have some math to support doing that. Bill did some scheduling that maybe was in your packet. This would effectively also help customers who maybe used 31, 32, 33 units or something and had a $50 or whatever penalty. It's gonna, in a sense, wipe out the first two tiers of the penalties, that $1,500 one, okay? Which I think a lot of customers would appreciate. Having looked at the math, in July, penalties totaling about $13,000 were submitted. Bill provided a breakdown of the tier grouping for those things.
I think Chad provided that.
Chad, okay, yes, and Chad was real helpful, while Bill was on vacation getting the information. I really appreciated all of his work. According to this, from April through June, we had about 95,000 in penalties that were submitted to customers. I'm gonna say it that way because I don't have verification that all those were paid. And that so far for the month of July, with the meter reading, the total about 13,000 yet to be collected. Looking at the increase, and Chad provided me with a chart of water year 2019, what percent of customers use 29 units or less, and it goes up to 50 and beyond that. And so some of my calculations were based on about 950 customers of the M&Is using more water. And that would run us about 45, 46 acre feet a month additional. And then the ag usage, or that percentage usage, and this is an estimate on my part, estimate, would increase by an additional approximately 150 acre feet a month, enabling us to end up with about my hope was approximately 100 to 130 acre feet for the winter months, because one of the charts shows you the water usage for November, December, January, and February. And one of the reasons also for doing that is taking a look at the budget and realizing that it's based on not just surface water, but well water sales. And to even come close to the 85%, we would want to use not all, but as much of the surface water as we could, holding some back if the wells go down, the power goes out, things like that, and then encourage water usage through the wells through the winter and actually into March, April, May, and June, because they're still in our fiscal year, though they will be in a different water year, okay? But that would then extend the surface water that we have to purchase next year into the warmer months and do a similar process. Any questions?
No, I like the idea. Bill, you've looked at this, and, you think we can do it?
I think we can do
Okay. I mean, that's the thing, our water usage has been underwhelming here this year so far. I mean, we haven't used very much water compared to
Right.
other years. So, yeah, maybe we ought to encourage a little more.
If we underuse the Mercado water by 300 acre feet, we have to put out $75,000.
Yeah, exactly, we don't wanna do
Okay,
that.
and we won't be collecting that money.
No, that's right. We
And
want-
we're already showing a deficit. So my concern is, and if we have to adjust it later, basically the 3 months of water usage are gonna be August, September, and October, because historically it drops off significantly
Yeah.
November and
Right.
on through.
If it
We
doesn't,
wanna
if it
have
rains,
a period of time for review, that let's say we're gonna review it 60 days from now.
we could do that.
Well, we're constantly watching this, so we don't have to, I mean, if you want to do a formal review, that's fine, but
No,
I
but that
would
would
have
be good.
information for you. If we
Because
could.
then
We
we'll have
could
to
adjust
bring
it
to the
next
board.
month or in September if we needed to at a board meeting.
We did this last year, and we bounced it around, and we were watching it as we went. The difference was that we didn't necessarily have to pay for all the water that we had that was available.
Right.
This year is different.
It's different.
This year, we're starting a little sooner. We're doing things a little better this year. So it's summertime, it's hot.
Yeah.
And the release of more water could, yeah, we'll definitely, I think we'll go through.
Okay.
And I think there's, you know, a little bit of a buffer there.
And we can do this and maybe, help some of those people who are in a physical location here where the water isn't quite as good as it might be with surface water.
No, we're still gonna blend it.
Yeah,
So if they're having a problem, we'll work on that, we'll work on that.
okay, that's his thing. Now, in your opinion, do you think, is my suggestion being too aggressive? Not aggressive enough?
You shouldn't, I don't advise doing any more than the 75%, just because of the state mandate on urban water suppliers right now.
That's what I was.
Is the mandatory 25% conservation.
Mhm.
So I think it would look bad.
Now, we also know that certain customers aren't gonna use the water. We had one ag customer tonight, and they're struggling to use their 60% allotments because theirs are massively high. I'm an ag customer on the 60%, and, I felt like I was wasting water, and I used a whole 98 units last month of the 214 I could have used.
Yeah.
You know, so,
Are there any other restrictions other than the 75% that we want to be aware of?
What, water usage, or what you can do with the water? Because there's more stuff
Say
that's,
where there's a 25% reduction.
yeah.
that's conservation.
The conservation, are there any other conservation things that we should be aware of?
State mandated.
Like we're not supposed to water ornamental, non-functioning ornamental turf. Things like that. Right. So I'm just letting you know that there's.
They're in the drought,
Yeah.
or the drought plan for us.
Off the top of my head, that's the big one. Non-functioning ornamental turf.
So
Right.
pasture's okay, functions are right.
Right.
Okay.
If
If
I can say one more thing.
let Bill finish, please.
Go ahead, Bill.
For clarification, if we're gonna modify allocations, we're technically modifying the drought ordinance. And therefore, we didn't do public posting, we didn't do, well, we don't have an ordinance to go along with it, but we're improving things for the customers. What we did last year, we just did it. But we would still have to do a week-long posting in the paper for roughly $1,000. And we didn't do that last year, because I think everyone was okay with that. But I should just let the board know that we're skipping a couple steps.
That's good to be reminded of, so,
Yeah.
because we should be doing this correctly.
Time to open it up. Yes, ma'am. Would you come up, please? Thank you.
I wholeheartedly would say if we can do it, let's do it. Because people are just at the point where they're gonna, if they haven't lost it, they might be able to save something. So, I mean, I'm in the same boat that you are. I haven't been able to use all my 60% because I still feel guilty about using it. But, we need to try and save what little of Happy Valley landscape we have left.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please.
Well, getting back to the fines, we're spending a lot of our time crediting a lot of these fines because of letters of protest. And that would really alleviate a lot of that because they have more water. And then they would have to be, in a fine tier. I mean, that's what she does a lot, is goes over all these protests and then she has to print. So even though you think you're spending money on these protests, or on these fines, they're getting printed a lot. But really, your dollar value is not that great. So,
I have a chart of the actual fines broken down by category.
but they haven't got the credits.
Yeah. As an example, during April, May, June, and July, there were 393 customers charged a $50 fine. The $100 was 26, the 240, and on like that. Right on down.
I think what you don't see is you see what goes out, but you don't see what we actually collect or what we
That's
adjust.
correct, and that's one of the things. What percentage of those fines do you think we're actually collecting? Right, yes, I will hold you to it.
Of the $1,500 fines, probably none.
Probably, there's 3 of those
Yeah,
for the month of July.
so I think it varies. And then if we adjust them, I think that throws a different equation.
So if none of those $1,500 fines are there because people are using more than 100 units beyond their allotment, is there any action the district can or should be taking?
If they don't pay their bill, they'll get a shot.
Okay. If that's being followed through, I understand that. I also understand one customer came in rather irate about their bill.
You need to be more specific.
Let's not, let's.
Because there's a lot of people that come in upset, we understand.
Right.
So,
It probably way overusing their allocation.
everybody's situation's different.
Sure.
So we went through this last year. What we did was that we alleviated the work with my staff because of the penalties, and now we've got the water. And what we're gonna do is we're simply gonna deliver water to the customers, and we're gonna follow the procedures technically that we need to follow. And it's gonna help all the way around. Is that correct?
Minus the posting part, and it's.
Okay, so
We're
walk
just
us
gonna
through
go
the,
scratch it out, 60, and put in whatever you approve. That's what I suggest.
Then we're going to 75. We go to 75,
Scratch
we
out
take
60.
29 and put 29.
Because if we gotta do all the posting, we're not gonna catch it before the next billing, not helping anybody out. until next
yes,
month.
and I'd like to do this as quickly as possible.
Agreed.
Anybody else? Yes, please.
Can we post it, be legal beagle on it, and in the letter that goes out with the bills, say effective, because we had to post it, but effective such and such date, this is the new one. And that would save time and effort, because it could go out in the bill, but yet be posted too.
Well, there's no reason to post a date and time and place of a public hearing if we're not gonna have a public hearing.
Correct.
It's $1,000.
That's the posting for.
$947 or something like that.
I don't think there'd be anybody that would object to getting more water.
We did this last year, we're gonna adjust.
We're
Anyone else?
fudging a little bit is what we're doing.
Anyone else care to speak?
Beverly, so great idea, let's start it tomorrow, because I need it, but, I think with the dialogue, it's a great idea then for the drought ordinance to put in something in there saying, if things improve, that we will be able to adjust immediately if necessary.
I mean,
So
I
that-
think it's in the
Turn
water,
it
it's in the
on.
water code.
Okay,
For the posting. Or no, we can't contradict the water code, right?
no,
Yeah.
I don't understand what
The
you're saying.
posting part, the whole, the noticing and the posting,
Oh,
that's in the water code.
so you can't just put it into the, because like with Prop two
Don't you wanna
eighteen,
follow the rules?
I do, you know who I am, I'm a rule
Alright.
follower.
Just making sure.
I just need some water. But the Prop two eighteen says in that document, it says just a 30-day notice to turn it around. So I just thought maybe if there was something in the drought ordinance itself that said if things improve, like, because when we went from $1.21 on the drought to $1.04, or when it got increased last August or September, we went from 84 cents to the $1.21 or whatever it was. It was a 30-day notification.
Those are two different things.
Yep.
One was done through a Prop 218 and the usage rate, the other one's declaring a water shortage emergency and drought.
But the process as far as, whatever, I just thought it would be a great way to put it in the ordinance that if you guys, if we could do it and
Okay.
make a decision if things were better, it would go smoother, because that would be the rule following in my mind.
I would think that no one's gonna complain, much like Joanne just said, because
I wouldn't think so
we're
either.
the customer. Will.
I think legally we can do it because we're.
What's the process for changing
More
that in the
available.
system?
How long have we had our current drought ordinance in place? Is it now 2 years?
No, the new one was put in place at the beginning of the water year.
This year?
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Sandy Winters, what are we gonna do with this water? I've not got anything planted, I haven't got a cow on my place. But I have no pasture to feed them, and I'm dealing with some people down in Las Molinas for some hay right now, $18 a bale. 3 head of cattle go through, a bale of hay in a hurry.
Yep.
My neighbor, I guess he can start filling a swimming pool, I can start bathing my horse, or maybe I'll fill my pond.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll fill my pond, it hasn't been
Raise
full in a
catfish.
long time.
There you go.
$1.04, I can afford that.
And that's good fire protection too.
Yeah.
We could plant a
You know, not
fall,
with the neighbor I've
a
got.
fall.
But we could buy there, we saw what you.
So do we want to, make a motion to adjust these allocations? or-
Well, wait a minute, before you do, anybody else? That's it, right? Now we'll bring it back to the board, and the board will make a discussion and decision on it. If you care to make a motion,
Well, do you want to discuss anything as a board?
I like what we're doing.
Okay, then I move that we adjust the water allocations for M&I from 29 to 40 units per month, and the percentage customers from 60 to 75% of their 2019, was it?
2019.
2018, 2019, water usage.
Did you just say all customers or just M&I
No.
customers?
No.
M&I from 29 to 40, and the percentage customers that are currently at 60% be increased to 75.
Technically, there's not a different, there's no difference in customers right now.
Yeah.
There's no ag water,
No, but there are certain customers who are sitting at 29 units as a max.
but there's some customers that are still in a computer as an ag customer,
Well, I didn't say ag though.
but you said M&I.
Okay, any customer who's currently at 29 units as a max usage be increased to 40 units. That's 100 HCF. And the customers currently at 60% of their historic usage on that water year be increased to 75%.
So everybody's gonna get a bare minimum of 40, or
Correct.
Or.
75% of the 2019 usage.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, just clarifying.
Okay, we have a motion.
Okay.
Do we have a second? We have a second.
Hold on, hold on.
Are you guys gonna publish this?
No.
And post it, right? So we only get to do it, oh my gosh.
Newsletter with the next bill.
I'll put it on Facebook.
Now,
Oh, that makes
Hold on, everybody, let's not get off track here.
Can I also add to that motion that this take effect immediately?
Immediately.
Yes, and you accept that as a
Yes.
second? Okay,
Okay,
immediately. All right.
Christie, please,
That's okay, I'm not part of the board.
No,
No,
you
we're
have
gonna-
concerns.
your concern?
let's
How is
let's
this
bring
gonna
this
end?
back to,
Logical for a
Audit.
second?
Oh,
Yes.
How is this going to impact anything having to do with, the parameters that were established to create the drought ordinance within?
So-
Is it going to hinder us from acquiring water in the future if we didn't publish
No,
this correctly or
No.
anything like that?
we did this last year, and I did check with legal, and even Rachel said that she seriously doubted anybody was gonna challenge this. Because, I mean, you're getting more water, why would you sue us?
For process, I guess if they were trying to build a case against the district for not following process is my concern.
The other things.
Well, they won't follow the process, I mean, that's a
There's more
simple
sort of
fact.
situations.
Well,
They don't know.
I don't see anything.
When will this go into effect the way they're doing it right now? Because it's gonna impact staff. So I have some staff-related questions now. Some actual, how are we going to deploy this change?
Thankfully, when we, had the software manufacturer write the new code, we had, line items that we could change, like the percentage and the base usage for people. So we can go from 29% or 29 units to 40 with ease, and we can go from 60% to 75% with ease.
So for any customer right now that is getting ready to, if you make this determination tonight, which I'm all in favor, don't get me wrong, but I would like to do it as good, I like to do it well, as much as possible for staff to be able to convey this well to the end user, right? So if you make this determination now, can we discuss like when that will go into effect? Because bills are getting ready to go out on Friday.
The bills that are going out, those meters have been read.
Agreed, so I just wanted to
So
make
we're
sure.
in the middle of the next billing period, and that could be adjusted,
Mhm.
I believe.
So the customers, the next bill they'll see for the video that's gonna go on Facebook,
Yeah, so you got 2 weeks to use some water.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
so the next bill they see
It's
will
the
not
it's the
be
best we could do.
impacted by this decision tonight, right?
No,
It's the following bill, so they
Yeah.
understand that.
Correct.
Yes.
so we have hit this right in the middle of the billing cycle, and we are doing this at the correct moment.
So if possible, then be bold on the newsletter. Water allocations have increased, whatever. That's all, and then Facebook and anything else that we can to let the public know it's out there.
Put it on the website. Okay.
And no one complain about errors on their bills this month.
Can't promise that.
All right, are we ready to vote on it?
I think so. We
Okay.
have a motion and a
All right.
second.
Okay, back to
And
the board.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Okay,
Congratulations,
Okay.
Happy Valley.
good. Hopefully it'll work. I think it will. 5F, historic past due accounts, discussion, action. And, Bill has given us, some of the information on the past due accounts.
that was Christie.
That's Christie.
Can
I think it's all in the memorandum.
Should I read it?
Yeah, it's in the memorandum.
Or did you want to read it?
So basically, this is the ask. I'll start with the ask, and then if there's any questions, we can answer questions. So we request the board approval to write off, the total of, book 200 accounts, which is, I can define what that means, but $61,168.65. These are aged customers' debt. And that dollar amount is as of an aged trial balance of 6/30/21. And then the other balance on here is 60% of the combine book 90 through 199s. And I'm
I
happy
think
to
For
answer.
clarification, the amount they're proposing that we approve for being written off are aged accounts, more than 7 years in arrears, and we can't collect anyway.
Yeah.
So, yes, close. So the big one, the book 200s, what we had to do is go through, first, seriously, this was a lot of work. July, Sally, Jen, oh my gosh, they've been fantastic, and Kristen like crazy. So that means we had to manually look into, 848 accounts that we're talking about.
Wow.
So any account in the financial software that was not a current account, we had to basically open it up and find out why it still had a balance sitting on it. So many of them had balance, where their deposit had not yet been applied to their final billing, which is why you saw what you saw, and you're gonna see a bunch more. There's a stack like this on my desk. And Jen and Sally and Kristen have gone through these accounts with fine-tooth combs right behind me. I went through the first wipe, Sally and I went through the first wipe and pulled out and created what we're calling a book 200. So a book 200 is an account that Scott mentioned. That means it's a 7-year debt or greater for the last time we provided the customer service or the customer made a payment on the account. So working closely with our collection agents, he clarified that him as a business, he can no longer do anything with an account that is 7 years or older, as far as he can no longer continue to report it to the credit bureau or knock on their door or write them letters. We, as a government agency, he spent some time with me last Friday. He's a lawyer. He gave me some time, and it was much appreciated. He's been fantastic. They've worked with Sally as well. And they let us know that we can collect on these book 200s, but he cannot. So us as a government agency. So these book 200 accounts, like we showed you in the memorandum, there's 471 accounts on there that total that $61,000. The auditor would like us to make a decision on if we're going to realistically collect that. I'm saying of those, Bill's saying of those, we've kind of talked about it, that those book 200s, they are like from 2002 and forward, that old. So that's where that number is. The other ones, so what they've done here in the past is, all of you folks in here are current customers, so you have current customer account numbers. If you sell your property or you move, your account is transitioned to a book 90. For that first month, maybe a second month, depending on where it hits in the cycle, and you're given a final bill. Your deposit's applied, you're given a final bill, either a credit or we invoice you. If you don't make a payment in that second month cycle, basically, you're then moved to a book 100, so on. The policy is you have to be billed 3 times before you can be sent to collections. So then what we ended up doing, and I just want to say, you guys did have some already at collections. They were the book 199s. Some of them are getting ready to fall off because they're aging. So that was happening. So when Bill kind of reviewed this for the auditor, he's like, you know, I feel like realistically it's staff time well spent to give all of these accounts that we've identified as kind of quasi bad debt. They need to go sooner than later to the collection agent so he can get on them. For the first 4 years, he can knock on their door. From year 4 to 7, he can only report them to the credit bureaus, which is where we really collect, because if they try to sell their property or whatever. It's, I do want to clarify though, not all of these are homeowners. So there's not a lot of lien opportunity, which that's a whole different conversation. That's not part of this question. But the 20% means that it's total debt that we are showing you here, less once the collection agency takes it and they're successful. What we pay them is only when they're successful, they'll take 35% off the top, send us a check for the difference. So that's where I would say that staff time well spent to me to live that with them. And so that's how, when Bill and I reviewed it, we felt like 20% is a reasonable write-off amount for those accounts. And, the auditors will reflect that in the numbers, the general journal numbers are giving us for adjustments.
To clarify, the majority of those that you wanna write off were, meters that were not being used. We're collecting at $7.93 a month.
I cannot agree with the majority of them were that, no.
Oh, okay.
They are dead. We can have the same conversation at some point about current customers with the same problem, like, we're gonna have to
Actually
get,
using water and not paying their bills.
we're gonna have to really get serious about,
Yes.
across the board, this is the method, and we have to compassionately but truly collect these fees.
But some of these accounts are not those.
Correct, so the accounts that are before the board tonight for, consideration on write-off are 100% older debt.
And they're not getting water in, but.
No, they have not been provided a service by us, they are not active, they are older accounts. I labeled them historic, so
Yeah.
people would be able to recognize in the language that we weren't saying, these guys just moved. We're not saying let's write those off. We're saying we're gonna collect those, but these are the ones of the folks who came before us that didn't get collected.
Yeah.
All right.
So basically, these are the old historic debts. But the board needs to take a look at what we're gonna do moving forward to prevent this from happening again.
Yeah.
And fair enough, every year though, every entity is going to have some unrecoverable debt that they would write off or consider writing off. I don't know that this was something that was done by fiscal year end every year and looked at. I would assume not, because they all still had balances on them in the customer software.
Correct. And that's why in the budget, we've got base rate collection at 85%, not
Yeah.
100.
Okay, there's no question from the board at this point. Open it up to the audience. Sally, you had something?
Yeah, well, we also currently still have problems with people that have a meter and they have their continual 1081 usage for years and years and years and years. And that needs to be made a decision too, because they're just sitting there calculating. They're deceased and their son has taken it over and he lives in Southern California and it's up here and there's no activity going on except for 1081, and they're just not even dealing with it. Can't get a hold of them, they're bad numbers, phone numbers, there's a lot of those. Where they were in the fire and they moved into renting it, they're just not gonna pay. They understand the concept of having their meter there and that they have a service to that meter at all. And there's still a lot of those online.
Okay, so
Education
this
process.
is where when you talk about capacity charges, you just explained how the 1081 represents capacity charges, is that correct?
No, this is not capacity charge.
Well,
The
but it's
1081
still a meter, it's a meter that's installed, it's a meter that's a
It's
bill.
already.
At that point, a capacity fee is paid. And if I said anything about capacity fee, I probably would have said something along the lines of, at some point, the board should, and we probably already have a policy on this, we just haven't found it. The board could look into taking the capacity back.
Pulling the meter.
So if they don't wanna, if they wanna bring that up to current, thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And the board should look at developing a policy or ordinance to be able to remove capacity. And if they want the capacity back, then they should have to pay for it at the current rate.
So currently they are will serve, is that correct? If they pay the bill. you
Yeah,
don't see
will
it.
service for construction.
Okay, so it's a 1081, because they're,
Is probably the base rate, or what they're being charged for the fees.
Basic.
with a meter installed on a piece of property that's ready to go.
Well, capacity's been paid, that doesn't necessarily mean that there was a meter there, but probably.
Oh,
This is, in a sense, it's covering the filtration plant load, the WINAC, the state fund, the backwash pond. That's the 1081. That
so
they're
they-
charged.
I'm confused about how it may or may not have a meter on there and the relationship
It's their access to our infrastructure.
Write me a check for $20,000 for a piece of property, and then you have your capacity fee paid. Then you can write me another $10,000 check for the actual service. Some people haven't taken it to that next step. All they've done is buy into the system. That's how you can have a capacity fee paid and not have a meter.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, bring it back to the board. This is an action item. Chair will entertain a motion.
Do we want any discussion by board members first? Understanding that a lot of them are probably renters or moved out of the area, is there any way of putting liens on any of them? Is it even practical to go through the process by the end of this calendar year, contacting the county and putting liens for their taxes that would show up on their tax?
Yes, so Bill and I and Sally, oh my gosh, she's worked so much on this. Volunteer of the year, like seriously, she's put so much time into this. So Bill and I kind of reviewed the government code that allows us to put liens on property. And we have started that process here. As far as the book 200s, just for transparency, although there's 471 on there, there's very few of them that are worth staff time to put a lien on. And even, I mean, the dollar amount is $1,000 or whatever. Those accounts were just very old and they just weren't written off.
And the chance of collecting is slim to none.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I wanted the board to
On the
understand.
book 200s.
Right.
Yeah,
And this cleans up our books so that we can make the transition.
it's getting come close.
And that's why what we will
That's a
do
good
is
thing.
this will come back to the board, we can accept this proposal and then move forward.
Yeah, I think so, and so if you feel like those are the right numbers to write off, basically, this is the last piece that the auditor's waiting for, and then she'll, as far as I understand, and then I think we're looking at maybe scheduling an exit interview with Bill and I and the auditor next week, so you guys should actually have something produced.
So this moves us forward and we accept your proposal.
Yeah.
Bring it back to the board.
Yeah, I'm just presenting the work. I mean, it was a team effort and led by Bill, but yeah.
That's fine, thank you very much.
So I would propose then that we accept writing off this book 200 in the amount of 61,000 plus.
The amount reflected in the memorandum.
Right, listed in the memorandum, that it be written off.
Yeah, the book 200, 471 accounts.
Correct.
Yeah, and you make a motion to that effect.
To that effect.
Okay, we'll need a second.
Second.
And we have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Not opposed, okay. Next thing.
Reports.
Wait,
Hold on a
there's a
minute.
part 2, sir.
Oh.
There's the
okay.
20%. You just wrote off the book 200s, but
Yeah.
then, my request is that the board review and accept our proposal of writing off 20% and absolving the rest of it, of the remaining ones. It's a 2-part action item in the memorandum.
Yeah, yes, and for book 90, 99, 100, 105, 198, and 199.
And you want us to write off
Yes, and
20% of those?
Right.
Yeah, so it says, it says in here, the other book accounts, 20% of those total value would be a write-off of $7,620.29.
Okay.
Correct.
So when and then maybe I worded that not as well as it could be now that I hear it out loud. Well, the ask is that we're gonna write off the whole amount and say that we're only gonna collect 20%. And
Right.
the 20% is that $7,620.29.
Your language was accurate with regards to the total debt.
So the collection of
And-
20% is an estimate.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you still have some alternatives, and you explained your alternatives. Is the the final paragraph, the request to write off the 61,000. Oh, that's the 200.
So
Yeah,
you
we
did
did that.
you did part one, that's great, and then, so the
Oh.
second to the last paragraph says we would write off, $7,620.29, assuming we recover an estimated 20% of the amount shown.
That's accurate, thank you.
Okay.
So then we would need a motion on that one.
Yeah, and so this includes that you still have a collection agent, not all, and we never know how much we're gonna see on there.
Our goal is to take complete action and really get some forward traction on these accounts. If we provide the service, then we also need to do our due diligence to try to collect on behalf of the customers as a whole. So that's the goal. They're definitely going to the collection agency one way or the other.
Correct.
People are getting reported. Honestly, as we go forward, you're probably gonna start hearing names be brought to the board for consideration of liens, that sort of thing. So people in the community probably need to be aware that things that have been overlooked in the past, as I understand, going forward, it's gonna have to be brought before the board. And even if we protect their names, we have to be able to identify the customer account in some way, so it could be property or such.
And it is a policy for us. We're not just allowing people to slide away. What we're doing is that we are pursuing all avenues for collections with regards to the outstanding accounts.
Everything that's available to us right now, us being the entire staff, is 100% utilizing it. But honestly, if you read our shut-off policy, our hands are a little cuffed.
I understand. There's certain circumstances and we don't need to pursue that. And that's
The
kind of
lengthy process of it all, it's very time consuming, and there will be some overhead cost in recovering some, and these are large numbers of customer accounts that generally, if you were looking at, we would be considering. It's like a full-time position.
correct. So we are enforcing our own
To the best of our current abilities, yes.
policies.
So the next
actually
time,
draft a policy
Hang on a
and
second.
make the
Sally,
process easier.
We were reviewing the policy today, and one of the parts in the policy is the fact that if there are Medi-Cal, CalWorks, all these government agencies, our hands are tied. They can, contest their bill completely.
Without going too far, to me, what becomes awkward then is if it's a state issue, then, and we're unable to collect the money, then in effect, then the state owes us what it is that we're unable to collect. I don't know if that's sound, legal.
There is a process for that individual to apply to the state for relief on that bill. But they have to apply themselves individually. The district can't do that on their behalf.
I'm sorry, I think we went down a rabbit hole. I
Yeah.
just need to make sure the auditor hears that you approved that we're going to only collect an estimated 20% of those accounts we mentioned.
Agreed.
Good.
I didn't want to touch that language.
Let's go back to that one then.
okay, so the next motion that we're looking for is to write off the 7,620.29. Okay, from book 90, 99, 100, 105, 198, and 199. Okay.
If it so pleases the board, if you want to word it something like that, you would make a motion to write off the balance of that group of accounts, stating that we're estimating we're going to collect 20%. So if there was any error in the way that it was translated from here tonight, it would still be correct when it went to the auditor.
Okay, so our language will be that we will write off the balance.
That we will estimate we'll collect 20% of those accounts and write off the balance.
We'll collect 20% of the 377 accounts, totaling $38,101.45.
Sounds great.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we need a motion to that effect.
I'd like to make that motion.
Okay. And we need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Not opposed? Motion carries. And that's it. For now, we go on down to operations and administration and bill operations report.
Excuse me. The Shasta County Board of Supervisors voted unanimously against the Tierra Robles project. Everyone knows that. There are 242 delinquent accounts, there are 61 plus days past due for $18,734. 50 customers received overage penalties for June, totaling $16,300. There's a list of things that the field and staff has been up to. There was 2 leaks on Linden Road across the 4th of July holiday. It says well 2 is online, but that should be well 3. Typo. There was a leak on Lassen Avenue. We got taken care of quick. Red is misread, or misspelled. It should be red, not red. Red meters on the 13th, and it took some time just because of the new software and toys. There's a list of job site cleanups that they did. There's a couple of spot paving jobs that still need to be done. We're trying to get scheduled. The fire hydrant was hit over on Olive at the end of June. You guys were quick to jump on that. And then from the field supervisor, it says, I want to personally say thank you to the board members and the customers for being patient with us. We're a small crew, and sometimes it's hard to get all of the repairs done in a timely fashion. This is often due to the time it takes to wait for USA locates to be done, and the fact that it takes some time to get parts and fittings we need. Yeah, emphasis on that. Filter plant operations, surface water, we use 68 feet, and the wells, there was 105 acre-feet in June. We're experimenting with different levels of water. Right now, when we switch over to Finstock 2, which is both the upper and lower elevations, and we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out that mess, and we're going to try to switch back over to the lower draw tomorrow. We cleaned the filter to waste pond. That's the pond that's right outside the Phelps Center. On Monday, and then yesterday we cleaned out pond 3 and took the dried sludge to the landfill. I think that's probably it for the treatment plant.
The cleaning of that pond, was that a skip loader brought in?
No, we used our Bobcat.
Oh, yeah.
In our dump truck, in our staff.
Oh, good.
Hey, Bill,
Mm-hmm.
did we sell any of those bags for $75?
Yeah, we sold a few of them. The totes.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Okay,
Yeah, we have a few left.
any other report? Okay, thank you, Bill. So the next thing on the agenda is the questions and the public comments. Anyone wish to speak? Beverly?
I know some of these things you may come up with and talk about at your standing committee, but I don't know that you will, so that's why I'm when you guys do your reports. But a couple of things that I needed to know, which minutes were approved tonight? Which minutes did you officially approve this evening?
Oh, minutes of 6:24:21, 6:29:21, 7:6:21, 7:28:21, 6:15:22, and 7:11:22.
You approved them all?
Yeah.
We pulled one out, I thought.
They just-
What's the change?
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I missed that.
Corrections.
Oh, okay,
But we
okay.
agree with those corrections.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
With the corrections.
My apologies on that one, okay. I just, we talked about the budget a little bit, and I know it's coming back. You have to balance a budget. It can't be $184,000.
That's right.
Something's gotta give somewhere, but I don't know where. But the budget, when we approve it, should be balanced. So that's that point. LAFCO meeting, August 4th, 9 a.m., Board of Supervisor Chambers is the next LAFCO meeting. And tomorrow, special meeting, 2 o'clock for interviewing.
August 4th is LAFCO?
Yep, August 4th is LAFCO.
And which, facility is that in? Is it Anderson or?
No, Shasta County Board of
Shasta
Supervisors.
County Board of Supervisors. They move it.
I understand.
Anybody else?
So we were super busy, as you can see, in July, and I apologize that we didn't get more financials closed out. You brought the question up earlier, and Bill and I talked about it, like how can we provide at least some information financially, like what's happening here, for the public information. I know they've asked that before, like where are we in our bank accounts and for the board. So, we did put together an account listing that you guys are all used to seeing, you being the board and the public, for the current balances in the bank accounts and CDs as of June 30th. If you wanted to add that to this this time, I have a copy for you, and of course a copy that I would have available for the public if they were interested.
Does that include a comparison of prior months, so we can see if there's some growth or?
So I can tell you there's growth across the board. It does not provide that comparison. I literally did it for a snapshot because if I were on the board or if I were a member of the public and there wasn't financials being presented, I would at least want to see what's in the bank.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to give you a copy of that with Bill's approval. I just put it in front of him and we can answer questions. We did bring to the meeting today, on Bill's laptop right now in front of him, there is the backup for each of the bank accounts, just the first sheet to kind of show a quantifier, like where the information came from. I hope that we have a lot more financials presented by the next board meeting, because our audit, like I said, is about done now. But I'm happy to give that, and I apologize if we don't have more financials, there's just not enough time in the days.
So now that you have the historic old debt cleaned up and you'll be able to finalize the audit, you're gonna have a, what, next week sometime probably?
An
The
exit
auditor will come
interview.
here.
I'm sorry?
The auditor will actually be here to go over the final stuff with you.
I don't know that they'll be in person, it may
Okay.
be a preliminary, and there may be other things that come up. There usually are, as we've been able to respond to and ask, it's, you know, they peel back an onion, they keep asking
I
for more
understand.
things until they get enough to be able to really make a determination.
I'm looking at possible time frame for that to come back so the finance committee can review it, and then present to the board.
Okay, it will, for the official audit, it'll go directly to the board.
Okay.
The audit packet and findings will go a copy here and directly to, it'll be addressed to the board. How
Okay.
you all handle that is, not my name, but, whether it needs to go to finance committee, but it gets addressed to the board.
Then that'll be sufficient.
How's it been going, Christie?
As you can imagine.
In the future, it'll be better.
Yeah, they've been fantastic. You guys did a great job selecting this auditor. They have been absolutely fantastic. They've had to work hard. I mean, it's what was way more, than they would have, they anticipated, which is what they showed in their invoice.
Who's the auditor?
McNulty, say, Horton, McNulty, and say Turner.
There you
I
go.
have it right here.
Horton?
McNulty and St. Turn.
Yeah, no, do something.
Chico, it's in Chico.
Yeah, it's in the,
There's Chico.
The other one you guys had was in Chico.
No, this is in Chico.
Oh, we're calling them in the rental office, I thought.
What page?
We were about
activity report,
For the date?
I think it was 610, let me look, I got it circled, so give me a second.
Okay, let's move down, we're all down there. Let's move on to 6C, Standing Committee Reports. Finance Committee, Mr. McVeigh.
Yes,
Got any report from the Finance Committee?
just that we had that meeting on the county OES that we presented tonight, and I'm putting together some other things that need to be on the finance committee, and I'm hoping to hold one in the next couple of weeks. And definitely prior to the next board meeting,
Yeah.
to discuss some things in cleanup. Okay? finance, yes.
Okay. Personnel committee, personnel committee has not met.
Well, we have.
Well, that was a while back.
We've disclosed what it is that we've been working.
Yeah. Planning and steering committee, Mr. McVeigh and myself, we were going to meet with, interim general manager, and off on vacation, so I guess.
Right.
we can now,
We did before his vacation,
Yes.
discuss some things.
yeah. So we'll continue with that, okay. And then the agricultural committee, Johanna Trenary,
We met tonight.
that's tonight, okay.
Yes.
Well, that's right.
Dennis
Yes.
came up with some good ideas for us. And, so, I hope, we're trying to decide, since now 6 o'clock, if we can sneak in, because we don't wanna do an extra day.
Oh,
Because
yeah, I
then
think
people
you-
have to stay.
Yeah,
Try to be kind to the staff.
Yes, yes,
good idea.
so,
One comment on standing committees, something that we did tonight and each of the standing committees should do annually, and especially whenever we change members of the committee, is vote for a chairperson and vice chair on each of the committees.
Only chair.
Only chair, okay. So Johanna and I did that tonight. She is the chairperson of the finance, and we really should do that for the other standing committees.
Okay,
okay, now, is there,
yes,
and.
go right ahead.
Okay. As you all remember, last year we had a free dump day called the county, and they said, yes, we're going to do it again this year. And it'll be in September, October, one free dump per household. And, we've got the tickets.
Is it a voucher like last
It's
year?
a, yes, they'll have a
Can you
voucher.
come
They
here
will
and
have-
pick it up, pick the voucher up?
Yeah. And it'll tell you on the voucher what you can bring and what you can't bring, okay? And these will be put up at the markets. I'm gonna wait, I'd like to at least wait a couple of weeks before they start coming in.
Johanna, would you like to have that in the newsletter, that they'll be available?
Oh, yeah, that can be that, if it's not too late.
Okay,
The news doesn't matter,
I think that does it. It looks like we have come to the end of this meeting, so we're done. Thank you all for coming. Be fire safe.
Okay, we got a fair amount done tonight.
Keep cool, yeah.